Hey, party people, it's Jaime. Producing our podcast, Confessions of a Creative Director, is one of the most rewarding and fulfilling projects of my life. I can't believe I get to meet and talk to some of the most successful and influential creative directors from around the world. I'm thrilled by all the support and encouragement I receive from listeners everywhere. Now, as a fan of the show, I invite you to join my Patreon and become a supporter of the show. You'll help me cover the editing, hosting services, and maybe the occasional tequila soda for yours truly. If you've derived real-world value from my conversations with the world's best creatives, this is your way to help keep it going. Visit my Patreon and sign up to become a supporter today. You'll get access to additional content from the show and maybe even a few surprises. I'm looking forward to many more episodes, and I hope you'll come along for the ride with me. Visit patreon.com/confessions of a creative director to become a supporter today. That's patreon.com/confessions of a creative director. Thanks. This episode is brought to you by What's the Big Idea? An indispensable guide to becoming a kick-ass creative director by yours truly, Jaime Cabrera. Pick it up on Amazon and now available on Audible. Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast, Confessions of a Creative Director, the original podcast made by a creative director, for creative directors, for aspiring creative directors, for creatives of all types looking to up their game by listening to and learning from the world's best. This is your podcast, and I am your host, Jaime Cabrera. On today's show, we have Gordy Sang and Brian Siedband, co-chief creative officers and founders of Quality Meets Creative, recently named Ad Age Small Agency of the Year. And they're here to share the story of their once-fledgling agency that is now exploding by forgoing conventional wisdom, trusting their instincts, maintaining a high standard of work, and fostering a collaborative environment where all disciplines are valued. So, without further ado, let's get into it with Gordy and Brian. How are you guys?
Doing well. How are you? Thank you for having us.
Thanks for joining. It kind of sounds like you guys. It sort of sounds like a radio morning, like a morning show. Gordy and Brian in the mornings on Chicago's. What would it be? Chicago's what station? Rock station.
Yeah, I think that would be a fun thing to do. I feel like that would be a nice dream to live out.
Yeah, or
tag team morning duo.
Yeah,
a lot of sound effects.
I have some sound effects on this thing that I use from time to time. Maybe I will break it out here. But yeah, thanks for joining the podcast. I'm super excited to talk to you guys. Congratulations on all your success. Ad Age Small Agency of the Year. And then I also just saw this little tidbit here, a little article here in Ad Age that says Quality Meets sees explosive growth pitching against bigger agencies to win bigger clients. Wow, you guys are kind of on a rocket ship over there. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it's always nice when we could have a headline that says explosive in some capacity.
Explosive is a tricky word, right? Because it conjures a couple of different things, but I think in this particular case, it's a good thing. Brian, tell us a little bit about what you guys got going on over there at Quality Meets, including how you got to the name. Are you guys big sort of like meat butcher fans? Like you guys go into the local butcher and ordering quality meats, or how did you guys come up with the name? Start us off there.
We are carnivores and do love to eat meat in all sorts of shapes and sizes, whether it's Chicago styled hot dogs or steaks or hamburger. Chicago has some great burgers and
meat. There's meats. There's different types of meats.
All kinds of meats.
Assorted meats of all kinds. Yeah.
Right. But the name did come from kind of like the butcher analogy in terms of like you go to a butcher to get the best piece, the best part of the meat, and kind of eliminate the unnecessary parts. And in our case, it's advertising and ideas instead of literal meats. That's
It's, I mean, like
it kind of has that. It kind of has that Chicago, being both from Chicago yet being a national virtual remote agency. It does have that, I guess, Midwestern roll up your sleeves humanity, kind of get it done. That is part of our ethos and the mentality that we've always had, kind of coming from Chicago and even just starting in the advertising world in Chicago. So that's kind of where the naming an agency is hard, though.
Yeah, I bet. I had the opportunity to kind of start an agency as kind of a conflict shop with IPG, and they forced us into this name that they already owned, which was called Advantage. It was actually originally Advantage International, which just sounded like a trucking company. Like, do you want to drive the big rigs? Come learn how to do that at Advantage International. Sorry, Advantage International people, if you're listening. But Gordy, you guys are working with some big clients, and in doing my research, I saw some great stuff for Huggies and Regal and DoorDash. But the one that really caught my eye was this one for Wiener's Circle, which was just hilarious. But just tell us a little bit about the clients that you're working with and the types of work that you guys are doing. Are you guys sort of a full service sort of agency, or is there a specialty? I mean, I know your specialty is sort of, doing things that are really memorable and kind of out there and cool, but are you guys a full service shop, or tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. I mean, we've evolved into, like more of a full service. We all come from the bigger agency background, all of us that are currently working there. Brian and I, we've been creative partners for like 17 years.
Wow.
And we come from, the traditionally bigger agencies, started both from Chicago, started at FCB Chicago, went to Deutsch LA together, and then back to Leo Burnett. So like we were loyal, big agency guys. And that's kind of, we all come from that background. So we can bring that big agency thinking, but to the point of the name, eliminating the fat of the traditional agency and serving up a more top to top kind of relationship, if you will.
And there is a lot of fat, and if I understand this correctly, you guys started off right during the pandemic, which I've talked about this a lot on the show, right? I got to imagine that it was a good time because there was probably a lot of brands that were like, wow, we were able to pivot pretty quickly and produce some work that was still pretty good at probably maybe a much smaller budget, because we were shooting things on iPhones or recycling footage or doing things like that. And maybe that was an opportunity for some brands to start looking around at their traditional agencies and going, was that the case? Is that kind of something that helped you guys launch that kind of like?
It didn't hurt at all. Like the concept was born pre-pandemic, surprisingly enough. It was Brian and I, plus our third partner, Casey Hart, who's a producer, longtime friend, who we worked at Deutsch with. And the idea was to the core of us and built more like a production house, where it's like the core of us, and then we'll find good clients who want to do good work, and focus more on project-based stuff and just scale up accordingly. Like we have this Rolodex of people that we've known throughout our careers, whether it's a designer, strategist, data, whatever. We could build almost an agency of all-stars around the specific needs of a client.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the concept. And we didn't have a client at the time. The concept was just like, this virtual remote agency, because she was actually at the time in San Francisco and then just moved to Austin, Texas. And then pandemic happened, and it kind of forced the hand of us starting this thing. And we were like, well, let's just put up a name and a website. Look, we're an agency. The facade of an agency. And the Wiener Circle work that you mentioned was our inaugural piece of work that we put out there And, abridged version is that projects get a little bit bigger, clients get a little bit bigger. We slowly grow more and more, but trying to maintain that soul of focusing on the work and cutting through all, I guess, the BS of what we're so formally used to.
Yeah, and that was a great. If that's the case that you started off with Wiener Circle, what a great spot to start with, because and everybody you should go check it out at qualitymeetscreative.com. Check out that piece of work, because I think it captured a moment in life, right? It's all around sort of the pandemic and this really foul mouth talking person that works there slinging hot dogs. I mean, it is really, really fucking good and funny, and it probably sort of set the tone for the type of work that you guys would do more of, and people would know you for, which kind of leads us to our topic, which is all around sort of unlearning all the conventional wisdom that many of us think that is the way to go for doing the work, running the business, all that kind of stuff. So let's just jump into it. I mean, start us off with what do you think is one of the biggest sort of things that you needed to unlearn as you started this agency, Brian? What do you think? Where would you start?
I mean, the first thing that we've done is just sort of structuring the whole agency to kind of question and kind of rethink a little bit everything that is, I guess, an assumption, or that we seem to be an assumption at a bigger agency in terms of the structure and the layers and how it operates. And so a question we often ask ourselves as we're making decisions, like, is this something that a bigger agency would do? And what would the bigger agency do? And like, is there a simpler, easier way to do that than like what we've been programmed with our big agency background? Because so many times we would hit roadblocks in the bigger and medium-sized agencies where it's like we would just act almost like our own agents, our own scrappier agency within the agency to get things and to find little workarounds around the processes and policies that they had that led to a lot of the best work that then allowed us to kind of progress in our careers, which is really counterintuitive. So it's all been about like trying to foster and cultivate an environment with people who, are like-minded individuals, cut the politics completely. There's just a mutual respect for everyone. So no posturing and, jockeying for power and that sort of thing. Just all with the same goal of creating the best possible output that we're all equally excited about, and holding hands to get that done. And doing whatever it takes to get it done, finding shortcuts and non-traditional approaches. So like in a nutshell, that's kind of how we approach everything we do.
Gordy, why do you think that happens, right? Because why do you think that agencies get less nimble, less scrappy the bigger that they get? I mean, what is the purpose? Like, why wouldn't everybody want to be sort of small, right? In my mind, it sort of just starts to become too much about the money and about, sticking as many bodies as you can on stuff. And then the overhead grows, right? And then you have to kind of like to continue that same cycle of let's get more bodies on this thing. And then it just becomes sort of a vicious cycle. Is that kind of what happens, or?
That's what it feels like. Yeah. There's a mutual dependency, we need to maintain this client to keep people employed, but we need more, we want to get more money, and then we need more people, but now we have more people. So we need to maintain this client, and doing kind of like that, playing that game of that, what you're saying, that vicious cycle of like, of the dependency of maintaining. And then there's just fear, I guess, like of losing that,
Right.
Part of the reason the construct that we have, which is built to a lot more full-time, we're at like 17 full-time employees now, where we started at 3. And that was like a year ago, we were at like 3 or to 5 or something like that.
Yeah, literally.
And we're being really careful about that, partly because we're not smart and we don't know how to run a business, or we have never run a business, and hopefully we're becoming less dumb. But it's surrounding ourselves with the right people who are smarter than us, and being really methodical on how we grow, and contracting up. So we have, at any moment, can have a lot of contractors, because we don't want to grow too fast, overhire, and then become dependent on a client and then have to basically eliminate jobs.
Right.
We would prefer to bleed a little bit of money to have that flexibility to grow up and down and scale up and down with the core people that we feel good with.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's funny that you mentioned that, because I did see a post where you wrote something. I think it was you specifically. It said like, I still don't know what I'm doing, but look, that's why you get smart people around you to help. I mean, is there a way that you think agencies can grow and can become bigger without losing that scrappiness and that nimbleness? What do you think, Brian?
To be honest, like, it's not really our goal to do that. The goal, like, we didn't set out to like grow an agency as big as we can, as fast as we can, sell it to a holding company and whatever. Like, this wasn't like a business plan in that sense. Actually, there wasn't even a business plan. It was just, let's do the kind of work that we love and that we're proud of, with people that want that kind of work and appreciate that, who are good humans that are also like-minded and share the same values, and then bring people along for the ride and allow them to feel as much a part of this and help us shape this thing. And so I think we don't want to grow too big. That's not our goal to ever become that. We want it to be sort of a tight-knit family or communal of people who all like know each other and respect each other, but there's enough kind of opportunity around for us all to feel like fulfilled and super engaged and wanting to help, shape this thing to get more and more great work that we love out into the world. And there's a cap, I think, of like, I don't know exactly what it is when we'll have grown to a point where it feels like we're losing that now.
Yeah.
And it feels like there's other, priorities that are coming into play that might be affecting that work. And I don't know I have no advice in terms of like how to navigate that, just because we only know what we've done to get to this point. And to be honest, like, I think some of our dumbness, which we proudly wear on our sleeves, has helped us get to this point.
Yeah.
Like, having that naivete and just kind of questioning things that other business people might have either ignored or just thrown out the window or done differently, that has allowed us to kind of have the approach that we have and still get to this point.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, so do you have it sounds like you do you have a sense, like you'll know, you feel currently like, I think we'll know when we get to that point, and then we'll have to go like, hold on, everybody, we might be jumping the shark. Do you think that you'll have a good sense of that? Because, I mean, if you guys continue on this path, I mean, I can't see you not continuing to grow, but you feel like you'll have a good sense of that, Gordy?
Yeah, I mean, it's a feel. Even currently, frankly, like, there's a feel of like, we don't want to get too far away from the work. The reason we did this was to do the work that we like and we're passionate about, while, still maintaining a career, to be honest. So I think, like, as we grow, I think we have to continue to be super methodical on not only the people that we surround ourselves with within our organizations, but the clients that we work with. So like, we have to be kind of like, and coming out of the gates, and like our whole approach of being overly transparent, I think has helped us vet the right type of client, the people who have an appetite for that work. So when we have those new business chem checks and stuff like that, we can feel out who is right and wrong. And I think it'll come to a point where, we're saying no, hopefully more often. A bit.
Yeah, and that's pretty cool to use the butcher shop analogy, right? It's like maybe turning away the client that doesn't understand what you guys are trying to the quality of meat that you're serving up, or that maybe is a little bit difficult, or that will and probably is a cool place to be, right? To be able to say like, and not not necessarily in a malicious way, but just like, hey, we think that this is a good fit between the agency and this client. Together we can do great work. What are some other sort of conventional wisdom, nuggets of wisdom that you guys are like, yeah, that's not who we are. That's not going to work for us. Are there any other kind of examples of that?
I'd say like the one that's foremost in my head is what we would hear throughout our career, and this is just like a cliche in the business world, or even just in life, of like, trust the process. And this is something that we had heard early on, and I remember always being critical of like, sure, there's times where it's like you need to sit back and let things play out and see where it goes, but there's also something to be said which we didn't see enough of in our, and I mean, we did see glimpses of this, so it's hard to generalize, because we do value a lot of the experiences that we had in our bigger agencies, but
Sure.
a lot of like the complacency of not wanting to disrupt and wanting to, follow the path of least resistance and let things kind of play out and hope that at the end everything turns out okay. And we've just found that, like, I think you need to disrupt the process when it feels like the process is not leading towards the best possible output.
Right.
And not just sit and wait for it to happen. So that's, I guess, to me, that's like probably the most concrete little piece of wisdom that we heard often that would just somewhat annoy us when that came up. And it usually came up because like we were being annoying about trying to push for something or whatever,
Right.
push back in some way because we were concerned about the work and a way of kind of quelling us. But like what we found was, with all of the work that led our careers to continually progress to this point, we didn't really trust the process. We changed it or we disrupted it somehow.
But there was a time, and I kind of feel like maybe we don't see that as much as in the past, right? But there was a time where clients, that was the thing, right? It's like, it's the, and I won't put any names in there, but it's like, it's the blank process, right? This is our, like, patent pending, trademark sort of, this is the way we approach things. And clients would gravitate towards that, right? Or maybe it was sort of like a formula and all that. And I get that, because clients are fearful, right? And they want sort of a sure bet. Like, they want to know that, like, well, they have a process that's going to get us to where we need to be. So how do you guys, or how have you been able to kind of sell the idea of like, fuck the process. We're going to figure out the process as we go along, bespoke to whatever the challenge is, right? We're going to figure out what we need to do to get to the right solution. How do you sell something like that to clients that have been so used to turning to what they think is a sure thing? Does that make any sense?
Yeah. I mean, again, I think part of that is finding the right clients who have that, who are exhausted of the process, like who want to shed the bureaucracy and the layers and the amount of strategic going through like 18 rounds of strategy before putting pen to paper to make things. So like, even like, I guess our quote unquote process is just us being us and you being you, and having this mutually transparent, brutally honest kind of conversation with, respect, of course, and doing it with, like self-awareness. But just having those candid conversations out of the gate and letting them know, like, we're on the same page. We're trying to move your business needle. Sometimes we're strategic to a fault. We're not the guys to make the big can winning stuff. We're doing stuff to move the needle for your business, but we also know it needs to break through and be entertaining in some capacity. And having that kind of brutal honesty conversation up front, and saying that we're going to be brutally honest up front, has kind of like disarmed them in a way that they're prepared for it. So when we do it, haha, I said do, they are less like, whoa, that was harsh. They were prepared. Oh, well, they're doing what they said they would do. And then at the same time, expect the same thing from them, like have them come at us being like, frankly, I just don't like that. Tell us when you don't like it, there's no need to skirt around it and trying to figure out an answer out of something. Just having that like mutual respect and transparency across the board has been the process. And then finding, I guess, strategically, our process is just finding that truth. Obviously, everyone in advertising is seeking that truth, but like getting down to the like real honest truth of like, how does this product fit in a consumer's life? And whether that's a truth that's maybe a little the elephant in the room that a client is afraid to go towards, push them towards that, or a truth to them that they have their horse blinders on because they're so inside their walls that it's so obvious. But to a consumer, it's like, yeah, you should mention that because that's how it fits in my life. So that's kind of been our process. And so I guess it's finding the like-minded people who want to get there and share that mindset.
So I'm curious. You meet however it happens. You meet a prospective new client, or you've already been hired, or whatever, and do you hear sort of what the challenge is, and then do you say, okay, thanks, we're gonna take all this information to the lab, and then we're gonna come back to you with some initial thoughts on solutions, or we may come back to you with questions, or how does it start? How does it work from that point, right? Because that's always sort of been my dream, right? To have an agency where it's like, okay, client, tell us what the business challenge is. Let us go away. We'll come back with some ideas on how we think we're going to solve it. But it may be any number of things. It may be TV. It may be some kind of like big experiential thing, or it may be a stunt, or it may be all social based. But how does it typically work at that point when you're first starting out?
It's really different with every client in terms of like what they know and what they don't know. So we try to make those conversations as like upfront and honest as possible in terms of trying to suss out what exactly like they need from us. And a lot of times it seems like agencies are trying to sell clients things that they don't necessarily need. They're just more opportunities to take on more things, right? And a lot of times clients have an idea of what they need and what they don't. And so the most important thing I think is like just truly listening to get to the heart of like what they're looking for, and kind of valuing and respecting like what they know and the expertise that they do have. That's where it's kind of different from client to client based on what position their business is in and whatnot. And even the client in terms of like how long they've been there and what they're trying to learn and understand. But I don't know, it seems like oftentimes agencies don't give clients credit enough and try to reinvent the wheel when it's not necessarily needed. It's already there. It's just a matter of uncovering whatever that special thing is that's like right under their noses that everyone's already aware of. But in general, like those first few meetings are all about just like, look, dump it as much as you can on us. Like we'll take all the info that we can and try to digest that. And we'll probably ask a lot of questions, and a lot of them will be dumb questions, but it's just us trying to get at the heart of what the brand is, what it means to people, how it genuinely, honestly fits into people's lives. And then what that problem is that we could solve. And then, trying to gauge, I guess, how self-aware they are in terms of the type of work that they're going to be open to, how honestly they see themselves, because that's, we're always looking to create work that feels authentic to the brand, and and plays into the perceptions that people have about the category and the brand, even if it's something surprising or going against it. But starting from that place of like, well, this is what people already think. How can we shift that perception in like a really honest, genuine way that feels authentic to the brand?
Yeah, and I got to imagine that just based on the success that you guys are having and the work that you're doing, are you getting to a point where clients are coming to you with the understanding that, okay, these guys are different and this is going to be a different way of working, and they're going to push us a little bit? Are you getting to that point where sort of the clients are self-selecting and going like, we know where we're going to be in for with quality meats? You know what I'm saying? Because I think that's, I mean, what a tremendous benefit, right? Because you think of an agency like Mischief, or, and that type of shop where I think the clients are already bought into like, they're going to push us and we're going to do some really cool shit.
That's the goal. If you build it, they will come kind of mentality. And that's, to your point, like why we were fortunate that Wiener Circle thing, even though as crass, as absurd as it was, it still got to a business truth and moved the needle for them. But yeah, having people come in with that mindset it's such a shortcut to getting to good work, and having that shared kind of mindset instead of trying to pretend like you're something that you aren't.
Right.
And even on our website, like the opening statement on our website is nobody cares what you have to say, which is, we're not saying like you as a human, but as your company, everybody, I hate commercials. I fast forward them all the time. They're terrible. I don't like them. They're a burden. So we're trying to just do something that isn't that, like that still gets your point across, still sells your product, and makes me be like, oh, I didn't think about it that way. That makes sense. I would like to buy that product or associate it myself with it. And I was moderately entertained by it.
Right.
So yeah, we have noticed the knocks that we've gotten. People are ready to walk down that path with us,
to be pushed.
It's a blessing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it feels like we're getting closer to that point where they're coming to us, and now we've been in some meetings with prospective clients where it's like they're kind of saying back to us the things that they've heard or already understood about the work that we would normally say to them to sell them on who we are, or to even just kind of explain our point of view. They already are saying that to us, which is pretty amazing. And that's what we had hoped for.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool. What? Okay, so tell me, we've covered a couple things. What other things are you like actively trying to unlearn about about our business? So is there anything else that you've been thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, unlearn. It's just like, again, shape shift a little bit, and we want to feel like, and part of the goal that we've set out is, again, like as we've grown, is to make it feel like everybody has a hand in the business. Like it's not just like you're, I'm just a creative at this agency, or I'm just an account person, but like help us. We're so in our adolescence as an agency that we're very malleable. Like the ship isn't hard to turn if you have ideas, and we want to bring people on who have that like entrepreneurial spirit and want to shape something and kind of bring their own little seasoning, if you will, my meat metaphor, to the company, and kind of shape it in a different way. And whether that's like, a certain style of working, or if it's like, I have a fun idea for a product, let's pivot and make that and do our own branding for it, kind of thing. Let's try and shapeshift to that.
Well, hold on there. Let's talk about it. Is that a thing that you've done?
Not exactly. I mean, Chicago, which was a small thing that we did with the city of Chicago.
Okay. Wait, I saw that and I thought it was a real brand. Tell us about that.
So they came to us, just the city of Chicago wanted to shine a light on, the resource of drinking water, fresh drinking water that the city has. And it's not like, Chicago, great drinking water. You don't think about it that way. And you might know, they're next to Lake Michigan, but you don't associate that again with drinking water. But the fact, like the whole country has all these droughts and drinking water is kind of draining. Having Lake Michigan there is like a resource of like hundreds upon hundreds of years of drinking water that the city then turns into, clean, good drinking water, and they have some of the best in the country. So they just wanted to shine a light on that in some capacity. They're like, oh, can we do a PSA or something or another? And the idea that we came to them was literally canning and branding their water as kind of like a road flare to educate people about the drinking water. And Chicago was the brand, and we used 6 street artists to make, copied a little bit of the playbook of Liquid Death. Just making cool cans that people would be proud to wear or hold on to and take pictures of at a music fest or whatever it might be.
Right.
And put that at, fests, or have the Chicago Marathon, have Chicago, here's my big dumb cup
right.
that has Chicago stickers.
That's right.
Kind of like shorthand Chicago as make a sense of pride out of it, but use it through a product, which is weird because like people to this day are still like emailing us like, where can I get it? We only made a limited run, but there is desire for it.
Yeah.
But
that seems like a big business opportunity for the city.
You'd think
government
should have been. Yeah, there's literal politics in politics, which
I
get in the way.
Quickly learned.
I'm picking up what you're putting down. So I love what you said a few seconds ago, and I want to come back to it and just make sure that I'm hearing correctly. Because you guys are still relatively small, but also I think maybe you guys have a different point of view. Am I hearing correctly that yes, obviously creative is very important and maybe the most important thing, but it sounds like you guys have a very big respect for sort of all the disciplines that need to come together to create the work. Is that what I was kind of hearing when you mentioned about, account directors and other folks kind of coming with some ideas as well? Tell me a little bit about that, because, I think that's refreshing, and you don't always hear that, right? It's always about the creatives. And my point of view is, yes, it's about the creative, but it shouldn't just be about the creatives, right? Like I feel like sometimes too much we're placed on too much of a pedestal when it really is, at the end of the day, a team effort. Is that what I'm hearing? Please tell me yes. Otherwise, this will be embarrassing.
For sure. We strongly believe it doesn't have to be siloed in terms of creative stay in your lane, strategists stay in your lane, account people stay in your lane, producers, new business, whatever. It's all because even as creatives, strategy is super important to us.
Yeah.
And we have a head of strategy who's awesome, and that's a discipline that we can offer to clients now. Before that, when we started out, it was just Gordy and I kind of basically coming up with what we felt like writing our strategy and our briefs a bit, which super important to us because we believe the best work is grounded in solid, smart, strong strategy. And then basically, coming from a place where we have had and still do to a certain extent wear a lot of the hats of the account person and the producer to get it done quickly. So we value that in everyone, in every discipline, So whether it's the account person dipping into the production or into strategy or into creative, anyone, we want to blur the lines a little bit because it is such a collective effort. And at the end of the way, it's all about finding creative solutions to bring powerful ideas to life in unexpected ways. And that comes from everyone, working together to figure out how to do that.
Yeah. So not sure. You guys are carving out a really cool space for yourselves in the landscape. So not that you wanted a bunch of other agencies to start doing this, but if you could, what would you say to other agencies, right, of the kind that we were sort of talking about, the old model, right, or the kind of the old school approach? What would you say? I had I had Andy Pearson on the show several episodes back, and he said something to the effect of like, agencies they're just taking things way too serious, right? They need to unclench, which was really funny that he said that, right? That was kind of his advice. Like, we all, we're overthinking it. What might be a piece of advice that you would give maybe an agency, that is trying to do more of the type of work that you guys doing or operate more like you guys? What would be a piece of advice?
I mean, that's a good one. And I think we approach and we know Andy, nice fella, nice mustachioed fella.
Yep.
I think we approach everything in that, that kind of have self-awareness and self-deprecation. Like we're making advertisements, like we're not saving the world. When things can, like it's nice when we can work on projects that can help try to do good. But all in all, like my wife is a school teacher. That's far more important.
Yep.
So like we shouldn't take ourselves so seriously and try to just, I think it boils down to, again, like just working alongside good humans, being a respectable person, trying to put just, I guess, keep the bar high for yourself, we've been fortunate, like in the sense of like the if you build it, they will come kind of vibe. And so making sure that you keep your bar high and not kind of laying down just because. If you have that kind of integrity and keep pushing yourself to, make the work, people will take notice. I think. And I think that's super important. And we've had to be super patient with that, like it doesn't come overnight. And we didn't expect it to. We didn't, again, like we're dumb and we didn't know what to expect, but there is a lot of patience. You can't expect to just like turn key and be like, oh, it's going to happen for us immediately. It takes it is a snowball.
Yeah. What about you, Brian? Is there something that you would want to share?
I was going to say perseverance. He got there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think he put it pretty well. Like, I agree. It's about like, maintaining your product and your voice and staying true to that. Like, one of the best pieces of advice mentor of ours ever gave us was like to trust our own instincts. And we live by that, obviously creatively, but business wise. And that goes against, what a lot of advice that was given to us in agencies where, people were trying to sway us or talk us off of it. And sticking to that gun has led us to this point. And sticking to our guns has allowed us to, maintain kind of the level of the standard that we have and be pretty relentless with that. Like, I guess that's our biggest worry is that, making sure that on everything that comes out the door, that bar is there because that's our product. And, we want that it represents us and our thinking and our point of view and, sticking to that and then just, persevering because once you've got that, then it's just kind of a matter of time before it continues on or it builds, it gets built upon. Yeah. And I guess the question is like, what are the goals? Like, cause we came in, again, naively, not having a specific goal of like, but just more so being open to seeing where it goes. And those, it's not that the priorities have changed, but that became a lot more real once we started bringing other people into the company, like full time.
Yeah.
Where now it's become more about like inspiring them and maintaining a culture that, they can feel free and open and honest to use their talents in a way that brings them, fulfillment and they get fulfillment out of the work. But once that happened, this became, I guess, a lot more real to us in terms of like, oh, there's other people's like livelihoods on the line. Right. So that still shapes like where we're going, but I think it was that openness and we still have that mentality, like he's saying, in terms of like, we want people to feel invested in the direction that we're heading, and we want to be a creative outlet. And we want to create like more enduring things, because advertising is fleeting. And if we can create real things that have a life outside the time span of an ad or an activation or a stunt or something, that's very creatively satisfying.
Yeah.
And that's satisfying for the world too. So, cultivating an environment where we all feel like we can do that, and it feels like there's possibility.
Yeah. Let me ask you something on this idea of trusting your instinct. I wonder, is there just one little anecdote, something that you can share? It's not giving away sort of the trade secrets, where you were at a crossroads, or you had to make some decision and you ended up trusting your instinct. I wonder, is there something that you could share? Because that's really, I mean, that's cool, right? And it's hard to do. It's hard to, especially when, like you just said, right, as you grow, you start adding people and their livelihoods and their families, right, are kind of like all depending on you in a way. And it must be difficult to sometimes say like, yeah, we got to go with our instinct. Is there something you can share?
There's been a couple times. I mean, instinct is what, as far as like finding the people that we've trusted, that we've surrounded ourselves with so far, have been really like finding our people. Yeah. Has been really powerful, I think.
So in other words, like where on paper, it might have been like, well, on paper, we should probably go with this person because A, B, and C, but there's some kind of, my instinct is telling me that.
Yes.
That kind of thing.
Yeah, right. Exactly. The qualifications of the other person was superseding the other person that we were talking about. But the other person just felt like one of us,
Yeah.
And that felt more right. And that type of instinct, like has led us down such a more happy path. And honestly, some of the stuff that we've learned to trust our instinct on is things when we haven't trusted our instinct, and then we got burned from it.
Yeah.
Because of it. And we were like, we should have trusted our instinct. And I think we've actually may have learned a few more times based off that than actually trusting our instincts. And now we've more, because of that, have trusted our instinct more and more because of the burns that we've had.
Yeah. Yeah. Those become more, you learn more from those. Yeah, absolutely. That's really cool. So as we start to kind of close out here, everything is changing in our industry, right? And I don't want to be necessarily cliche and talk about all the things that we know are out there that are shaping our industry. But what do you think is where are we going to be? What am I going to be talking about on this podcast in 5 years? Kind of getting back to your instinct. What does your instinct tell you? I mean, where are we going to be? What's the state of the television commercial as we know it now? What role is social going to continue to play? Is there going to be some other platform or some other kind of channel that you see coming to the fore? Like, do you ever think about that kind of stuff?
No. I'm like of the ignorance is bliss a little bit. Like I try to focus on what's at hand a little bit instead of worrying about what's in the future. And then, because we all evolve to it, I think. And that's the key to us, I think, remaining small at our core and soul, is that we'll be able to shapeshift to it, hopefully. Like AI, I'm like, yeah, bring it. I want that. It seems like a wonderful playground. All about that. And then even I guess the model in which we're working, which is again, from when we started 2020, when it was kind of like novelty of this virtual remote agency. And even the virtual remote agency, it seems like people are going back to the office a little bit. We've maintained, and we continue to maintain, that we don't have a physical establishment. We're completely virtual in the ether. And that's our goal. But the thing that we've done, we know we're not like, oh, we're the only ones doing this. There's plenty of people, and I think there's plenty to go around. But the way I equate it is like, oh, you have your traditional agencies that are your bigger, FCBs or whatever that are your AOR. They're more like your cable and satellite providers, and we're more of a streaming network.
Yeah.
And it seems like people have started to cut the cord a little bit, or like I have Comcast and I have Netflix. So we could live alongside that. Like I think there's a world where that's healthy too, but plenty of people are cutting the cord too. So I think more clients have that appetite to cut the cord, if you will, and find experts in specific things or have specific needs. And it'll evolve to more of that kind of project based, or not necessarily like traditional AOR, but more of a pipeline situation, and maybe having more of a roster of agencies.
Yeah.
Which I think we thrive in, because again, going back to complacency, I think there becomes a complacency when you have the traditional AOR in some ways.
Absolutely.
So I think it's healthy to have different agencies to work with, and finding the right people for the right job, the same way we scale up and find the right people for that specific need that they have.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping it goes in that way, since that's what we're doing. But you never
we'll
know.
be living in the Terminator, so it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't really matter. Well, do you share that opinion? Because this is interesting, because you're kind of paying off the whole topic, right? The conventional wisdom would have said, yeah, we're, of course we're thinking about the future, right? Because we have to, whatever. And your answer was different. It's like, well, no, I'm focused on working in the moment, which is a quote came to mind. It was, I think somebody was talking about Michael Jordan, right? And what made him great was the fact that he was always playing in the moment. He wasn't thinking about the shot that he missed or the shot that he was going to make. He was just kind of in the moment. But I'm just curious, do you share that worldview, Brian, or do you have a different thought about what's going to happen?
Just to interrupt, Brian, I like the Michael Jordan comparison. I'll take that.
Yeah, absolutely. You're the Michael Jordan of advertising.
Yeah, that's insane.
You can put that on your LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, we'll quote you. I'm like debilitatingly short-sighted, I think. Yeah, like I can't help but put all of the focus on like what's happening in the moment. And I think that's part of our mentality of making sure that every piece of work that goes out the door, like that the bar is high, and that we're all putting everything into every project, because that's the most important thing at the moment. Obviously we're working on multiple things, but each one of those that's happening now is the most important thing. And we have short memories in terms of like, we're only as good as the last great thing that we did. So we want to be constantly making as many great things as possible. And in order to do that, we have to be fully invested in making that one thing, no matter how big or small it is, as good as it can possibly be. And that's part of the project-based mentality. So I think we'll always be flexible and always and want to maintain that, even as we have, longer term arrangements with clients, that like the focus really is on making what we're doing in the short term with you as good as it can possibly be.
Yeah. And to close us out, it's almost like if we're using that same metaphor of the butcher shop, right? It's like, I'm focused on you, customer. I'm focused on what, the customer at hand here and what we're going to do for you. And that's cool, man. That's really cool. Congratulations again on all your success. I can't wait to see what else you guys slice up, serve up. I'm definitely rooting for you guys, and let's keep in touch. Let's keep the conversation going. And any final parting words that you would love to kind of impart on the audience? Michael Jordan, any final?
Jordan.
Yeah.
No, I mean, not really. I mean, like, I guess the thing that we've, belabored is how dumb we are. And I think that's it's fun to us. Our euphoric place is the intersection between smart and dumb. So like it's finding that we have a Venn diagram that's literally smart, dumb, and then it's like this is the part that we like to be in, is the center.
That's hilarious because I think I just heard something similar, and it was like attributed to Conan O'Brien, saying that that's where he sort of liked to operate, and that sounds about right. What about you, Brian?
He said that in his parting show. I think it was like his final, it's like his parting piece of wisdom in his last show. He was like, that combination of smart and stupid is like where the magic happens. It's like where it's hard to nail. It's actually difficult to get to. It's got to be that right combination of either dumb wrapped up smartly or a nugget of smartness wrapped with dumbness. But when you do it, that's the most beautiful thing. And yeah, I mean, that's how we approach everything.
I fucking love it. What a great way to wrap up the show. Thanks again for being on. I really appreciate you guys making the time to do the show. And again, continued success, man. Let's talk soon.
Yeah. Thank you for having us. This was awesome. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, take care. And that's going to do it for another episode of Confessions of a Creative Director. Thanks to my very special guests, Gordy and Brian. Another great episode filled with wonderful nuggets of wisdom that you can start using today. Let's all start unlearning some of that conventional wisdom and trusting our guts more. And maybe even wrapping up stupid in smart, or vice versa, wrapping it up the other way around. So another great episode. Thank you so much, guys. Hey, I want to invite you to support all the efforts going on here at Confessions of a Creative Director. You can do that in a couple of different ways. You can pick up a copy of my book available on Amazon. It's called What's the Big Idea? An Indispensable Guide to Becoming a Kick-Ass Creative Director. You can also join my Patreon, which is patreon.com/Confessions of a Creative Director. I'm posting breakdowns of the show and also my exclusive segment on there called and 5 More Things, where guests of the show answer 5 really great questions. Gordy and Brian had some great answers, so check that out. And then at the very basic level, follow me here on LinkedIn, subscribe to the podcast, tell your friends all about it. Help me keep this thing going. All right, folks, that's going to do it for now. Until next time, peace, love, and creativity. See ya. Bye.